Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. Boy, this is going to be a treat. We have with us returning guest, Chairman of the Libertarian Party, Angela McArdle. Angela, I intentionally made it a point not to keep track of what was going on at the Libertarian Convention, and it turned out far better than my wildest dreams. In fact, when you were on the show previously, and I'd asked you who the potential candidates for presidents were, I don't think you even mentioned the guy who ended up getting the job, someone who had not heard of, although I was aware of his role in forcing a runoff in the Georgia Senate. So kudos to him for that. And before we get started, I want to give you your props because you have a very thankless job. If you're trying to wrangle libertarians, good luck. For the first time in history, and something that would have been unthinkable 4 years ago, you made the Libertarian Party convention relevant
Yes.
because of your and that is a really big deal. Because of your machinations, President Trump came in person. He didn't call in video message to fight for those votes. Robert Kennedy Jr. came in person, talked to the crowd to fight for those votes. You had Vivek come as well. Who are the other speakers that I'm missing?
Thomas Massey came. He did a meet and greet. Gabriel Shipton came, Julian Assange's brother. I came very
Yes.
close to getting him an in-person meeting with Trump. It didn't quite happen, but we came close. Tim Cass came and did a live coverage, and I got him an interview with President Trump.
Yeah, so I think this is a really big deal because when the Libertarian Party was founded in the early 70s, the model was these populist and progressive parties from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And though those two parties never had much electoral success, in terms of getting their agenda across through the other two parties, it was enormously successful. I mean,
Yes.
within a couple of decades, both Republican and Democrat were progressive parties, broadly speaking, though each had a conservative wing. So I want to talk to you about that. How did you pull off? First of all, let's go with RFK, which would have been an easier get, of course.
Yep.
How did you get him to agree to speak to the Libertarian Party convention?
So this is like something that people with basic human social skills will understand, but it's kind of a new tactic in the big L libertarian circle. It's called maintaining a good relationship with someone and not insulting them and trashing them on social media. Now,
Wait,
I
hold
understand you
on.
have a separate role in all of
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
but you're not in charge of a political party.
That's true. That's true.
It's your job is to do all of that. We should
Yeah.
leave that to you when we're trying to maneuver politically. So I had a sit down meeting with him and his team in July and said, let's keep a good relationship open. It seems like you're very interested in courting the libertarian vote, which he has been.
Yeah.
And I've checked in with him personally many times, maintained a good relationship with his team. And I told them, I told the same thing to the Trump team later on. We are the most powerful voting bloc in the country, and we will decide which way the election goes in 2024. If you want to get in on that, you need to be at our convention.
And do you know what else I think people don't appreciate is the libertarians, lowercase l, are so thirsty
Yes.
that it really doesn't take much to throw them a bone and be like, we're moving the needle and we're getting something, because they've been so crapped on for so long and been such a persona non grata. I remember I was an intern at the Cato Institute back in 97. And it was the Cato Institute was the be all and end all, basically, of libertarianism. There were some fringe things, but in terms of having any influence, which they had very little. And I remember at the time, and I think I mentioned this in my book, The New Right. And at the time, it didn't resonate with me as much as it does now about how absurd their model is. David Bose, who's still the executive vice president, I believe, of the Cato Institute, they had something called the Cato Handbook for Congress.
Yeah.
Because the Republicans took over Congress after the 1994 elections for the first time in 40 years. And Cato laid out, this is the budget cuts you can do that won't be painful. It's just waste. So this is like going to be non-controversial. You won't have to, third rail, we're going to privatize Social Security. These are things you could do. And they have these little binders. I still have mine. And Bose said, I think it was an interview with the Washington Post, that this is like pornography for Republican staffers. We know they're not going to do it, but they're going to be, excited to read about it. And so according to your model, nothing's going to get done. Why are you here? So my point is, if we are getting, as libertarians, if you are getting something done, you would think, okay, we're going to sit down with these candidates, get a few concessions, but that's still way more than we got in the past. So what was RFK most receptive to you asking him for? Or where do you see the Venn diagram?
Well, I mean, we support his position on medical freedom.
Yeah.
That's an easy one. Like, we're perfectly aligned on that. We're opposed to mandates, and we're highly skeptical of any expedited vaccine program that comes out of the government in a time of crisis. And so he recognized that. And also, from the libertarian perspective, at least from the Mises Caucus perspective, we're interested in populism. It doesn't mean that we're gonna die on that hill every time and always attach ourselves to it, but we recognize the significance of it. And he has a populist movement, and so we're natural allies, I guess you could say. And also, and this is so interesting, things that I never thought I'd hear myself say, I have political experience and he's brand new to this. And, I don't have the same political experience as Donald Trump, Thomas Massey, Joe Biden, but I've got more than zero. So I do have some lessons to share, so we have collaborated a little bit on just like basic strategy, things that I felt it was not like a breach of my fiduciary duty as a leader of a political party to share polite tips, ways to engage with our voting demographic, things that are good for us, quite frankly. Like, I want to shift the Overton window. I want people using our talking points and elevating them, so from my perspective, it was a very kind of a careful dance, but I was punching up this whole time.
Yeah, and to those people who, these boomer cons who think that the Democratic Party or left wingism, broadly speaking, will never is the way it is, and they really believe it. Like, oh, they're never going to turn their backs on LGBT issue. They're never going to turn their backs on Black Americans and certain things. When you or I were kids, if we're told that one day lefties will be telling us to trust giant multinational corporations with our health, it would be as ridiculous as saying like the Democrats are going to fight gay marriage.
It was
It's
an,
a joke because
it's
it's the
crazy.
basis, right? It was the basis of leftism. These giant multinational corporations are destroying the earth. We cannot trust them. They're the devil. Every movie, it's some
Yes.
evil corporation. And then come COVID, it's just like, trust Pfizer. It's just a complete shocking 180.
Just 12 years ago, the left was championing March Against Monsanto,
But yeah.
food freedom. It was 2012. It was just like peak fervor against pharmaceutical companies and genetically modified food and giant food corporations. So it happened very quickly, I think. And I do think that Kennedy is also, he's still stuck in like a period of like 10 to 12 years ago, which is interesting because it seems like forever ago. It really wasn't that long
Yeah.
ago.
And Occupy being a great
Yep.
example of the corporations are the ones who are holding the rest of us down. And now it's like, bring your kid over to get his booster that for a disease he can't even have.
Yeah.
And now I can say that thankfully on YouTube. Now, you're no Kanye West. How is it that you got in touch with former President Trump?
Well, it's like you hear from someone who says they're part of the Trump campaign, right? And the same thing happened with Kennedy's campaign. Same thing happened with Vivek. And you're not really sure at first whether or not they are, but eventually you
Yeah.
kind of cycle through until you get someone who is. It's I know a guy, I know a guy. I'm the guy. Well, I'm not the guy, but I know the guy. And so I finally just made contact, and it took a little bit of work, but it happened. Same with Vivek's team.
Virtually every libertarian I know, and I certainly know a lot of them, even the ones who infinitely prefer a second Trump term to a second Biden term, would admit that he's not a libertarian, even if they, admire him or think he's great. I don't even know that President Trump knows what that term means, other than it has the word liberty in it. So that probably sounds cool for
Hmm.
him. What was your pitch to get him to come and speak to the convention? I mean, did he have any understanding of who these people are?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
he
okay.
knows who we are. Absolutely, he knows who we are. I had a good conversation with him about it. His perspective is that we cost him maybe the 2020 election,
Wow.
and he's working to try to get our votes,
What
and so he was very interested in coming.
was it? Who pitched that idea? Because that seemed to be such a crazy ask. I would be shocked that did you who came up with that idea?
Well, I did. I mean, he was like, "Oh, how do I get in touch with them?" And I was like, "Well, you could come to our convention, if you want to reach the libertarians."
And he
And he
was
was
receptive?
he was like, "Ah, fine, I'll come to your convention. I'm going to come to your convention."
Wait, it was just like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It
how
took some work, but
sure.
that was the initial response. Yeah, I'll come to your convention.
Without getting anyone in danger, I'm not even kidding. I'm imagining coordinating with the Secret Service when you have a room full of people, none of whom are neurotypical, is going to be trying to navigate a maze, right? So, how much
Yes.
coordination did that happen without trying to, I don't want to reveal any dangerous things.
So it took, let's see. I mean, I had an initial just, acceptance. Yes. And there was a little bit of a time delay. And then Secret Service didn't come in really until kind of the last minute.
Oh,
And it took a lot of work. We had already planned the convention out. And it's not just me. This is like planning Freedom Fest.
yeah.
It's a giant undertaking. I have a full staff who's working on it, and a convention committee, which are essentially like a group of volunteers. We plan the whole thing out. You have to use like CAD software to design the where the tables are placed in the rooms, the pipe and drape backstage, and then Secret Service comes in and they're like, "This is not going to work," and I just said, "Yes, it is." And the Trump team came in, and to their credit, they were like, "You know what, guys, Secret Service, we know you've got some concerns. We know you've never done it this way before, but it's their convention and we're going to make it work." And they did, to their credit. The Trump team was so professional and so easy to work with. I was still, a little like freaked out by just the general Secret Service presence the day of, but except for some initial pushback on the room that we chose to have the event in, they were not difficult to work with. I let the Trump team mostly handle them, and I think they did a really good job.
Hey guys, I want to talk to you about Lumen. It's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then it gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You could also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. They're really smart. They sent me one. It's really easy to use, and it's really fun. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, and other things. Lumen gives you better recommendations to improve your metabolic health, and it can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. Hey, I'm an underwear model, and I didn't get into great shape without taking care of my metabolism and my nutrition. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me, Lumen, and use code MALICE to get $100 off your Lumen. That's lumen.me and use MALICE at checkout for $100 off. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show. So again, as I said earlier, like trying to wrangle libertarians is like, like herding cats, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
How concerned were you that he would get shouted down in that room, and if that would make you look bad?
It was really touch and go. So libertarians are like very Pavlovian. So there's some call and response things that work really well, and then there are things that are very negative. And like I worked with his team to try to make sure that everything that they cared about was in that speech. And there were moments where it was just like so high, but there are things that where those people are so triggered that when they hear it, it's just boo, boo, boo. And we were really doing well until Senator Mike Lee, who spoke right before him, mentioned at the end of his speech that everybody should vote for Donald Trump. And then it was just like, boo. And I was like, oh no, Mike, like you were doing so good right up until then. And that teed him up to be angry. And there was a lot of booing. But if Mike Lee had just finished his speech like 20 seconds sooner, I think there would have been less boos.
Do you know how Trump felt having been booed by that crowd?
Well, I mean, I've been booed by that crowd, so I know that it's not
No, they were
pleasant.
saying boo earns.
He took it like a champ.
Okay.
I think that that man has incredibly thick skin, and even though there were a lot of boos, there were a lot of cheers.
Okay.
And I mean, the aftermath was just he made history. He made history, and he has a ton of support from the broader liberty movement and the conservatarian movement. People were so impressed that he was willing to just deal with us,
Yeah.
and that the concessions and commitments that he made during that speech were just completely jaw dropping. And I feel like some of the boos in that moment took took that away. You know, it took away from that. But once the dust settled, it was like, holy crap, like that guy just promised to free Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah.
He said he would put a libertarian in his cabinet. I mean, this is crazy stuff that's never happened before.
I Well, one of the points I made, and I'm positive you agree, is that they've made working for Trump and the Trump administration so radioactive that
Yep.
in a second term he's gonna have to staff his cabinet and administration with the crazies. And
Yep.
the crazies are the ones who get things done because they actually have an agenda. And the
Yes.
crazies are the libertarians. And I say this with 100% positive use of that term.
We
They're the
will do
ones who
it.
are like, we have a vision, and CNN is going to think we're nuts. You know what? They're going to think that anyway, so that's a wash. So why don't you think we're nuts and get things done and have effective change, as opposed to you think we're nuts and I'm Rex Tillerson and I've gone from being the head of Exxon to Secretary of State for some reason, and now I just have this contempt for Washington and my results have been nil.
Right. Right. I believe that he's sincere when he says he's going to put a libertarian in his cabinet. I think that he has been surrounded by deep state thugs,
Yes.
and maybe there was naivety, maybe there wasn't perfect alignment on what that really meant in the past to be surrounded by good people. But I think that he is keenly aware of like that problem now,
It,
especially after all these lawsuits and people have abandoned him, and this like gross like January 6th insurrection talk from people that he vouched for in the
yeah,
past.
yeah.
I don't think that he has a perfect understanding of libertarianism by any means. I don't think he's 100% aligned with us, but I think that he recognizes that we wouldn't pull that crap with him.
I mean, I want everyone watching this to imagine the possibilities, which are finite because it's still Washington, of Corey DeAngelis as Secretary of Education. I mean, just that alone would save how many kids from a nightmare future? Just that one thing. And let's talk about Ross because um, I am ecstatic that I had a little part to, like I sit here with my dumb books and my stupid microphone. It's just like, it's kind of a little bit, it's a circle jerk. But when you affect people's lives for the better, it really is very validating. And it's kind of like, I don't feel so stupid buying all these succulents. Um, Having, this platform and having positive change in people's lives is really kind of validating. And I was the one who got Vivek interested in freeing Ross. And after I brought up to him on this shitty show, he looked into it, he made the commitment, and I know he's talked to Trump about it.
Yes.
And for Trump to publicly say, make this commitment, and this is the kind of thing where I don't expect any politician to be able to deliver. I don't think Trump's going to build the wall. I don't think he's going to balance the budget or end the Fed. But this is a signature, takes him 1 second, and as importantly, it's a finger from him to the deep state.
Yes.
So it aligns with his incentives, it gets votes, and if you or I have had any part in freeing Ross from jail, I can go to sleep happy and knowing, I did my part.
Yes. This is the most powerful thing that the Libertarian Party has ever done, in my opinion. Where it makes the whole thing worth it. It makes all the grief I take, the autistic cats, all of it. It makes it 100% worth it. Um, and I've had a few conversations with him about it, more than one.
Wow.
And every time he's reiterated yes. One of the things that frustrated me, and we can get into Chase Oliver in a bit if you want,
Oh no, we're
is
not going to talk about that at all.
okay, is that we put this we put this thing together, right? And to make everybody happy, I said that the candidates who polled well would get to do like a little press conference rebuttal afterwards. And I'm thinking, I don't know what you're going to rebut after that, but go ahead, right? And one of the things that Chase Oliver said was, I bet President Trump has never even heard Ross Ulbricht's name before this happened, before tonight. That's not true. He pardoned him the last administration, and the attorney general slow walked it so it didn't happen. He ran the clock out. And I had conversations with them months ago about this, and he remembered Ross. I had to jog his memory a little bit, but he brought it up, and he walked me through a few details. And again, I've talked with his staff multiple times. They absolutely know who he is, and we have pressed upon them the significance of it. It's we have Politicians do not deserve much credit generally. But when they do one or two significant things right, we have to give them credit for it. Or else, why would they be incentivized to do anything for us
I,
if we are
I
going to treat them like garbage all the time?
I remember vividly when people were laughing that Kim Kardashian's at the White House, and it's like Kim Kardashian got that mom out of jail. It's like,
Yes.
shut the fuck up. Like, until you
Yes.
save someone's life, you sit down and you shut up. Like, she could be as vapid as you want. Who cares about her makeup and her hips? I don't care. She got a woman out of prison. Are you kidding me? This
Yep.
is heroism.
Yep. And you know what else? That President Trump said he was considering freeing Assange on Timcast. And those are
Yeah.
conversations that we've had too, and I've been pushing, and there are other people who are close to him, genuinely close to him, who are pushing it too. So there's a lot of powerful influence.
The other thing, because again, we're dealing with libertarians, I played a little bit of 4D chess on my own. And as I'm sure, and I'm positive you saw, I tweeted out, "Hey, Joe Biden, if you pardon Ross Ulbricht today, you can make a complete fool out of Trump. Don't let him use this issue against him." And then, of course, the simpletons chime in like, "Well, this would still be Trump's victory," or "Joe Biden's not reading this," and I'm like, "Yeah, his
Ugh,
team is." And
so
if enough
painful.
people see it's enough people see this, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's worth a effing shot. Why are you trying to pull out the rug at this moment when someone's life is at stake?
They
What
could
is
be
go ahead.
they One of the problems with the Libertarian Party, distinguished from the broader liberty movement, is that we have been addicted to losing. Like, oh my gosh, losing is like the ultimate orgasm, and so to lose on that would be so gratifying for them.
And I sent it to Lynn, and Lynn Ross's mom, and she was, grateful for that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to happen, but it cost me nothing. It cost just 3
Right.
seconds of my time. Um, so let's talk about this uh, campaign. So I see behind you, you have the emblems of the Mises Caucus, which is the more paleo-libertarian Murray Rothbard wing of the Libertarian Party. That candidate was Mike Rechtenwald, former professor, who has been running a campaign pretty consistently for a long time. He got defeated after, I believe, 7 votes by a young man named Chase Oliver, who I think would identify as a member of the left libertarian section of the party, who thinks the focus should be more on, anti-racism, anti-discrimination, and things of that nature. And the thing that's interesting is it's there's this big kind of I was just thinking about this today. There's this big kind of butting of heads between these 2 wings, and then there's the coalition builders like, you guys basically agree on the same things, and that might be true, but the thing is, each of those wings, if they got into power, the first thing they would do is what the other wing would disagree with the most. So it
Yes.
wouldn't be like the first thing they're going to do is like cutting income tax. No, the first thing is going to be, fighting, blocking laws about trans kids, or I don't even know, like repealing like discrimination laws for the Mises Caucus. I know what it'd be. So Are you allowed? Since I'm seeing your allegiance, but are you allowed to kind of pick sides, have your finger on the scale? What was your role in all this?
Well, I was very focused on negotiations and the convention. I'm basically the chairman of the board, but I'm also the executive director.
Okay,
I'm the CEO. So I run staff operations. I decide what kind of messaging, strategy. I decide all the stuff with the party. And I used to be on the board of the Mises Caucus, their political action committee, but I'm not. I stepped down once I became chair of the party. So I just haven't been able to do that kind of stuff. Like I didn't volunteer on Michael Rectenwald's campaign. I gave him a couple of pointers here and there. I connected him with someone who helped him with debate prep, which I'm eternally grateful for. But I didn't have the time even to put my thumb on the
sure.
scale.
Folks, I had stomach issues my entire life, and I've been talking about this for years. It was by taking probiotics that I became a normal human being, something I thought, well, in this context at least, something I thought I could never be. So I am delighted to talk to you about Just Thrive, which is a product that not only I'm using, but is an issue that has affected me profoundly and has changed profoundly for the better. Life can be stressful, and it's not just your mind that suffers when you're tense and anxious, because stress can make a mess of your digestion and immune system too. And you can handle it with the help of Just Thrive Probiotic and Just Calm. Say goodbye to frazzled nerves, say hello to a steady, chill, more relaxed you. So Just Calm's exclusive mood lifting blend is clinically proven to help you relax and breathe a little easier in as little as 4 weeks. And for the next level mood and immune support, use Just Thrive Probiotic, which is award winning. It not only has 1,000 times better survivability than most probiotics, but this spore probiotic banishes bloat and constipation so your gut can produce more of serotonin, which is the happy hormone. And ask yourself, if these probiotics that you see at the store have to be refrigerated, how can that probiotic survive your 98-degree body if it can't stand room temperature? Doesn't make sense. So with Just Calm and Just Thrive's probiotic, you'll have the ultimate stress-fighting duo to help you win the day every day. And with a money-back guarantee, what do you have to lose? And for a limited time, you can save 20% off site-wide at justthrivehealth.com with promo code WELCOME. And to learn more about Just Thrive Health and all their clinically backed products, don't miss my special episode where I interviewed Tina Anderson, who is the CEO and co-founder. Take control today with Just Thrive. Let's get back to the show. Can you, for those of us who didn't, including myself, who didn't follow the voting, can you break down what happened? Because
Yeah.
I've been hearing for the last year that the Mises Caucus, which was heavily affiliated with my good friend Dave Smith, that state after state after state, they were taking over state affiliates.
Yes.
And it wasn't even close to be like, to like 3-1. They come and vote. It was all Mecox everywhere. So I don't understand, kind of like the Hillary Clinton book, what happened.
All
Can
right.
you walk us through that, please?
I can. Let's do this without assigning blame to anyone, but all learning a lesson on how to
Okay.
be better.
Okay.
We were set to take over in 2022 before Dave stepped in. We were going to do it with a smaller margin, but we had
Wait,
been
who's we? Who's we? The
the
Mecox?
Mises Caucus. Yeah.
Okay.
We had, 24 to 26% in 2018. We had 40 something percent in 2020. We would have come up with about 60% in 2022. And we came in with 69 to 70% instead. But what happened when Dave stepped in and said he was going to run for president is the mission completely wrapped itself around that. And instead of just decentralized revolution, which is, what we were all about, decentralization, winning local elections, strong messaging, that sort of stuff, it became the Dave campaign. So when everything wrapped around Dave, that meant there was a lot at stake with whatever Dave Smith did. And for several reasons, and I think a lot of personal reasons, mostly, Dave decided not to run. And when that happened, it created a huge vacuum, a huge shockwave of disappointment and general chaos. And it was really challenging to
Wait,
reclaim
doesn't this
that.
disprove libertarianism? Because without it creates a power vacuum, and therefore it's going to end a disaster. Checkmate, libertarians.
Checkmate. So kind of, we reached out to several people to fill that space, and Michael Rectenwald was the only one, to his credit, who stepped in and said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll be your standard bearer."
I thought isn't Jacob Hornberger aligned with the Meacocks, or is he more of a moderate?
Jacob Hornberger was our candidate in 2020 and subsequently decided that COVID lockdowns and masking weren't a big deal.
Are you
No idea
serious?
what yes, no idea what to do. He's spent the last 2 years about the last 2 years trashing me because I had Corey DeAngelis speak at a fundraiser event, and he thinks that school choice is socialism and fascism, and how could we see anything except complete abolition and anarchism on day one. His big thing is abolishing Social Security immediately. I don't really understand what's going on there, but I do understand now the frustration that some of our movement leaders had with him in 2020.
Look, I
Yeah,
have been consistently one of the biggest opponents of government schooling, and a lot of my stupid little catchphrases, people quote them all the time. Um, and he's correct that it's socialism and fascism, and it's based on the Prussian model, and it's unspeakable. And I am very interested in James Lindsay critique, where he says if you have vouchers, there's something I think people really need to think through, because Lindsay's really, really good on pretty much I think every issue, frankly, that I've seen him on, which is if you have a voucher system, then you're just going to have these things creep in and ruin the private schools, excuse me, as opposed to having some that are better than others. He's like, look at the college system. They're mostly private. Do you think they're, hotbeds of freedom? So that's a really interesting and important critique that people need to consider. And I get Jacob's point about you should be advocating for this, but it's always, and Rothbard even talked about this also, take what you can with what you have, right? If we can't argue for, immediate machine guns and nuclear weapons for everyone, surely in the meantime we can fight for, banning red flag laws and liberalizing gun ownership in places like New York City or Chicago. So it's those of us who believe in liberty. So, and I don't see how you reconcile I'm anti-school, pro-lockdown.
it's just peak autism and hypocrisy, and it made me sad to see it. I'm the
What
one that nominated him in 2020 and gave his nomination speech.
he did run for 2024, it says. I'm seeing jacobforliberty.com. It says
Oh yeah,
Jacob
he ran. He also said that he was not going to participate in our pay to play scheme of a straw poll, and yeah, he just got really weird. Yeah, I haven't really said anything negative publicly about him until now because he was a candidate, and I try not to say anything negative about him. But I would say at this point he's become a total psycho.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I
It's
mean, it's
a
also kind of inevitable with libertarianism.
yeah,
I mean, it's not the liberty to alt-right pipeline, it's the liberty to the Arkham Asylum pipeline.
yes, yes, that is the pipeline, and he is there behind the bars screaming.
Wait, let's just talk about this a little bit. I'm not trying to, I don't want to blow this up too much, but like the thing that drives me crazy, I don't like it when people fight, people who,
Sure.
otherwise get along. It upsets me a little bit, and I'll be honest. And I try to get along with mostly everybody, and I alienate people I don't like, and it makes it a lot easier. On a personal level, I mean, he's gone after you publicly,
Many, many times. It's
but
been yeah. He uses
can,
it. He's used his every time he would go to a state convention and campaign, talk about his campaign for president. He would also talk about how corrupt the LNC was, how we were prags. Very, very focused on Corey DeAngelis in particular.
but did that? I don't know how to ask this in a non-Barbara Walters way, but did that hurt your feelings? Because it would hurt my feelings.
It was so weird
Okay.
eh, that not really. It was more like, "Are you okay?" And certainly, it was everyone else too on the LNC. He was very angry with, but I mean, I'm the one that, with more name recognition, so I took a little bit more heat. But
And also, it comes with the territory. You're going to be the whipping
yeah,
girl, for better or
totally,
worse. Like, if you're the
totally.
face of the party, like someone wants to take a smack at it, it's going to be you.
It's
And you
fine.
knew what you're
My job is to eat shit and to move things forward. And
yeah.
so I eat shit.
There was no possibility. I know you fairly well at this point. There was no possibility that you stepped into this role thinking it was going to be like Jasmine and Aladdin or something like that. You
No,
knew what you were getting yourself into.
100%.
Oh wow, that's so unfortunate that he goes after Corey, because Corey does so much good work.
Corey's a
Um,
saint.
yeah,
Mad respect for Corey. Corey will also tell you which states have the best school choice legislation too. I think that Corey is not under any illusions about the long-term effect that it could have,
of
but
course.
it's an immediate parachute out of the worst public school, like violent ghettos,
Yes,
and of course we would recommend that everybody just homeschool your kids and pull them out completely. But when conservatives and the general public and inner city populations aren't there yet, let's do what we can.
yeah, yeah. I'd rather save some kids than none.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that's his men. That it's. I mean, I don't. It's hard to argue with that. I guess some people would argue with that, but that's just not my perspective whatsoever. Okay, so let's walk us through these ballots because I'm still confused. Because if the
Okay.
Meacocks are coming with 70%, like, please walk us through this.
So we didn't come in with 70%.
Okay.
The Dave thing happened and people just lost enthusiasm. They dipped out. So it is extremely expensive and time consuming to make it to delegate. And that's something that is very unhealthy about party culture. It's like, it's very culty. You have to
Yeah.
attend a ton of meetings. You have to show like social proof to your other activists. I'm doing all the work. I'm doing all the things. You have to fight the people who hate you. You spend an enormous amount of time on internal party politics instead of affecting the meaningful change in the world that you want to. So it's very challenging. And I have a lot of gratitude for the people who are willing to go through all of that misery so that I could get reelected. Like major props. But as that happened, we dipped from 69 to 70% down to about 45%. And then you have additional attrition. And so then I'm fundraising with a team behind the scenes to make sure that people show up, that they have their hotel rooms paid for. The MC is doing it separately. We're all trying to make sure that we have it. So I roll in with like 45% solid, which everyone else, it's not 55% haters and people who are just like bloodthirsty far left activists. It's like 15% people who are just like vile people. And then the rest of them we call the middle. They're caucusless. So, we have like a breakdown of, like 10% friendlies, which means they vote with us almost like 100% all the time. And then the rest we just call neutrals. And, like sometimes they vote with haters, sometimes they vote with us. And so it's my job and the job of the MC and the candidates to whip those people, not literally, um, to get their votes. So you start off really strong, and then the haters run a very active campaign of messaging to the neutrals to get them to pull in their direction on a few key points. And one was to seat delegates improperly, which means people showed up, they were not delegates, they were not qualified to participate in our proceedings, and it takes a 7/8 vote to seat them. And I ruled that and they overturned my ruling. Here's the trick. It's quite a bit of work, but it only takes 2/3 of the room. Or no, I'm sorry. It takes a majority to overturn my ruling. So there's a cheat code. And if you make it sympathetic. Oh my gosh, Angela and the Mises Caucus, they don't want these people who traveled this far away to participate. That's so unfair. And you just get 51% of the room to agree with you, then you can seat people who hate us. So our numbers drop. And Friday was really challenging, right? Because you have all these people who I need their vote, they're really mad at me. They think I'm engaging in some sort of corruption because who has time to read the bylaws of 50 state organizations and understand why someone should or shouldn't be voting? So they game the system that way. So we lost our numbers that way through dilution. There were about 45, 47 people who were seated improperly. And I ruled against it, and I probably should have done a better job of arguing against it. And that's on me. But it is difficult. um,
Yeah, of course.
so that happens. And then there's like, we go through business. The entire first day is wasted on these credentials challenges. Saturday, I roll in. I'm very good at speaking. This is what I do. I get people, whipped into a frenzy, and I get reelected with 53%. So we're on an upswing now.
Who was your biggest opponent?
Mark Rutherford, he's like a Prague guy. He got elected as vice chair, which really was not ideal.
You two not
And
get along?
well, he hasn't spoken to me.
Oh, okay.
We'll
That
see.
answers that.
Hopefully, we
Okay.
can have a good working relationship.
Okay.
But as of the time of this recording, he hasn't. Not even in the business meeting after the convention did he say a word to me.
Oh,
So
wow.
there,
Okay.
yeah. So there's that. I'm the articulate, polished one. I know my cats. I know how to get them excited, and it's a little bit different than just being in a regular business meeting because you got to be inspirational. You got to do all the things.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I know how to do those things. So I get reelected. We're on an upswing. Saturday night, the Trump speaks. That
Wait, before
goes.
you get to that, how concerned were you that you would not get reelected? Was
I
that a likely possibility?
It was not a likely possibility. I anticipated that I would get elected with a much tighter margin, that if I did lose, it would be literally 49%. But
Okay.
I anticipated that I would win with 51%, and I won with 53 point something percent.
Okay.
So we
Cool.
landed, I always estimate worst case scenario and I
Yeah, yeah.
build myself around that. So we
Yeah.
came slightly above what I thought, which is good. I swung the neutral and friendly vote in my direction. So the Trump stuff happens. That goes from the Libertarian Party, the party cultist perspective, as well as it could be. He says all the right things. Our guys still, our weirdos still boo him and act like animals, and they feel
Okay,
very
and
validated.
I asked for one specific correction.
Yes.
Someone on my Twitter replied that you guys didn't listen carefully. Trump said he would only free Ross if you nominated him as the Libertarian Party candidate. Is that accurate?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
There was no word only. Of course, he was saying, if you nominate me, if
Right.
but it's not like those two were connected.
Okay,
It's
just want to be
just,
clear. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
it's not correct.
Okay.
So, that goes, I think, really well, all things
Wait, I gotta say
considered.
one more thing because there's something really important.
Yeah.
How did Lynn Ulbricht find out that Ross's mom, who's been waging a one-woman war to free her son? I've had her on the show. I've had lunch with her. Just an amazing, inspirational woman with a great sense of humor, by the way. Because she's like, "Why'd I ever give him Atlas Shrugged? This is my fault." And by the way, it's as a side note, his fiance, Ross's fiance, runs his Twitter, and it's very rare where I have a tweet that I don't want to send. And I was DMing with her. I'm like, "Hey, can I make this joke?" And she's like, "Probably not." I said, "Can I make a joke?" She's like, "Probably not because we don't want, who knows if the administrators see it and they think he's taking it lightly." I'm like, "Sure." So I'll say it now where he won't hear it, which is he had a tweet where he was like, "Hey guys, I'm trying to get in better shape. I'm going to take up running. Does anyone have any running tips?" And I almost quote tweeted and said, "Well, maybe not running the Silk Road would have been a good start." Point being, Lynn is a great woman with a great sense of humor. How did she find out about this commitment? Were you the one who had the privilege of telling her?
I was. I
Oh,
was. Yeah. I
what was
have,
her reaction?
well, I mean, she's, I think probably overcome with emotion. I've been at this point where, and she's not involved in these conversations. I think she is trying to do, what she thinks is the appropriate thing for her to do in this role, and to not cause, disruptions. But I've kept her very informed, and she is, beside herself.
Oh,
I've
that's so
also
great to
tried
hear.
really hard to make this sincere. The last thing I want to do is give her false hope.
Yeah, of
And,
course.
politicians, they break their promises all the time, but from my perspective, like, this one seems genuinely sincere. And we had a whole long list of things, to talk to the Trump administration about. They were logging in and watching our poll results because we had our delegates voting on the top 10 issues for Donald Trump to talk about at our convention. So props to them for actually paying attention. But, this was always the number one issue, and they recognize that.
Folks, I want to talk to you about Bone Charge. It's a holistic wellness brand. They've got a huge range of evidence-based products to optimize your life in every way. It is founded on science, but inspired by nature, and all Bone Charge products adopt ancestral ways of living in our modern day world. And their extensive range of premium wellness products help you sleep better, perform better, have more energy, recover faster, balance hormones, reduce inflammation. The list is endless. From blue light glasses to red light therapy to EMF management and circadian friendly lighting, Bone Charge products help you naturally address the issues of our modern day way of life effortlessly and with maximum impact. This includes their infrared sauna blanket. If you want to burn more calories to help with weight, if you want to detoxify, if you've eaten badly, had a few drinks, if you want to look to ease stress and unwind as you're being very stressed right now, the infrared sauna blanket is for you. Easy to set up, takes less than a minute, rapidly heats up, and you can enjoy a session for 30 to 40 minutes while relaxing, reading, watching TV, meditating, or listening to your favorite podcast, or even this. You'll feel more relaxed after the sessions, you'll feel revitalized after them, and you'll feel less stressed. Bone Charge ships worldwide in rapid time. It's made from vegan leather, and there's free shipping on every sauna blanket. They've got easy returns and exchanges with a 30-day trial and a 12-month warranty. Go to bonecharge.com/welcome, BONCHARGE, and use code WELCOME to save 15% off. That's BONCHARGE.com/welcome. Use code WELCOME to save 15% off. Bone Charge products are all HSA, FSA eligible, which gives you tax-free savings of up to 40%. Let's get back to the show. Okay, so I interrupted you. So you were saying Saturday the Trump thing happens.
Yes. And Michael Rechtenwald had some sort of incident where I think someone gave him like a cannabis gummy and he didn't know how strong it was. Something happened. So he kind of flubbed his rebuttal. So I allowed the candidates, I was like, you're going to wait like a polite 2 minutes for Donald Trump to clear the stage, for a little bit of the frenzy to die down. And then we're going to let the 3 candidates who perform the best in our poll based on their debate results earlier that day to come up on stage and have a press conference, a rebuttal if there are things he said that you didn't agree with, whatever. So I gave them that opportunity.
Cool. So who are those 3?
It was Mike Termott, Chase Oliver, and Michael Rechtenwald.
Okay.
And Rechtenwald just had some awkward moments, unfortunately. So I don't think that helped.
It is on brand. I mean, there's that line about libertarians are fiscally conservative and socially awkward.
Yes. So he had some awkward moments. And because we didn't go in, he started campaigning late. And that's not his fault because we had someone else, for a year and a half prior. He started campaigning late, and I think that he was not able to endear as many people to him.
Sure.
So he had an uphill battle. Mad respect for him, but that definitely created, some frustration with the people who had just kind of marginally signed on to his campaign. So we went in a little bit weaker. We had that upswing of Angela winning, and then went in a little bit weaker Sunday morning, and the haters, the people who hate me, the people who hate the MC, the far left people in the party pushed aggressive stall tactics. They didn't turn in their ballots on time, especially in the state of Texas, unfortunately, our home state. They did everything they could to wait us out because they knew people were going to be leaving Sunday evening. And so I chaired that meeting Sunday from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. We had a 1.5 hour break. It was a 14-hour meeting, 14.5 hours. So it's an exhausting thing. It's a war of attrition. Whoever, they seated people improperly, and there's not anything that our judicial committee can do about that. It's nothing at this point besides a lawsuit, which I don't recommend. Please, no one sue the party over it. They had improperly seated delegates. Rechtenwald took a hit, a PR hit. We had a war of attrition. They would hold on to their ballots until the last minute. Basically, I almost ruled for them to just not have their votes ineligible, and all of a sudden the votes were in. And it just took 7 rounds of voting, and it was just closer and closer and closer and closer.
Well, can you walk us through those 7 rounds, or at least broadly speaking?
Yeah.
The first round, what did it look like in the first round?
The first round, Michael Rechtenwald was in the lead. I think he had like 38%. And
how many candidates were in that at that point? How is it split between how many?
In the lead, you had Michael Rechtenwald, Mike Termott, Chase Oliver, Lars Mapstead. Those were the top vote getters. You had some fringe votes with Art Olivier, who was Harry Brown's running mate, Jacob Hornberger, Joshua Smith. I know I'm leaving a few out. Charles Ballet.
Okay, so there's a lot of people in that first round. So
but they're all gathering like 5% or less. I think Josh was a little higher.
So second, how does it winnow down from between rounds?
Less than 5% drops out.
Okay.
So it keeps dropping, and then you see the numbers shift, and Rechtenwald grew a little bit from the Chase vote. He grew a little bit from the Lars Mapstead vote, but it was a battle between Rechtenwald and Chase Oliver, because you would keep dropping like the lowest vote getter after we passed the 5% threshold. Mike Termott dropped, and then he endorsed Chase Oliver, which everybody was very shocked by. because privately, Termott had expressed support for Rechtenwald and had some things that were very unflattering to say about Chase. But it's politics. And so, he and Chase worked out a deal where Chase offered him the VP role.
So
So everybody was shocked.
So let's talk a bit about Mike Termott, then we can talk about Chase. So Mike Termott is, until recently, a cop.
Yes.
He was also a government bureaucrat, and he was also an academic, which is basically the Venn diagram of libertarianism.
Right.
I had never heard of him before. As of this recording, we're recording this on Thursday, which is almost a week before this episode drops. He still hasn't figured out how to spell libertarian on his Twitter page. It says libertan. Now, I would get if the letters are transposed. Like, you're typing quickly, Libre or RAIN. I get that. That happens all the time. I've typos in my books. But the thing is, it's like 4 days now, and he still hasn't fixed it. And the point I've always made, and this is indisputable, is that third parties on social media are playing on a level playing field. This isn't CNN, Fox, the ballot box. That Libertarian Party tweet can have as much cred as a Republican tweet, a Democratic tweet, can ratio them. I've ratioed the New York Times. That shouldn't happen. I'm just some jackass with a keyboard and a mic. I shouldn't be in a position to be upstaged in the New York Times. Is this a major victory? Absolutely not. But it's just an opportunity for a party like Libertarian Party to be taken seriously. So to me, these little kind of things. I remember when Gary Johnson was running, there was something in Brooklyn. I forget, it's called Liberty Fest. I forget what they called it. And they had his postcards, and there were like 3 typos on it. And, this is me, Mr. You're welcome. But it's like, you're running for president. Like, if it's the kind of thing that wouldn't be acceptable on a resume for your first job, you're running for president. Get your shit together, or figure out someone who does.
Well, I believe his campaign said that it's basically locked, that after you edit it, you only get a certain number of, you have to wait a certain number of days. I think it's like a profile picture or your check mark disappears.
Okay, so I also want to read to you what Mike Rechtenwald had posted about these, this is public, about the convention, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. Here we go. This was on Twitter, I believe. Yes. This is Dr. Michael Rechtenwald at Wreck the Regime. I know some people want me to grovel with apologies, or else they're reveling in my loss. I don't think that's true. I think there's plenty of people who want neither. I'm not going to apologize for being snaked by a cop. I am not the one who illegally and without warrants busted into poor Hispanic innocent people's homes and cuffed them in their kitchens. That's your vice president nominee. I'm not the one who lied straight-faced 3 times. He misspelled straight, but that's okay. Isn't it Strait? It's not actually straight-faced. Maybe I'm wrong. Double check it. I'm not the one who lied straight-faced 3 times while I believe them to be other than inveterate liars. But that's on him. If you're trusting people who are hustling for office, I don't have sympathy with him in this specific regard. And promise not to throw the nomination to my opponent a mere 10 seconds before doing just that. Here's where it gets good. Never change, libertarians or libertans. But my crime was taking a gummy I thought would relax me. I'm not the one who advocates violating the NAP, the non-aggression principle, on children, or who deep-stated the LP in DC. The people who did this are no better than the duopoly they supposedly deplore. They just want a triopoly. Period. Larry the Sharp candidate shooter, Mike Termite, ooh, sick burn, and the whole host of slime balls that make me want to take an endless shower for having shaken their filthy hands. The problem is that I'm too nice a guy. Well, that is a problem. This is politics.
Yes, that is a problem.
And in my opinion, and I'm not saying this about Rechtenwald, I really want to make clear that when people call themselves a nice guy, they just mean an unempowered bad guy. Because any female who knows that when that nice guy asks you out on a date and you say you're not interested, all of a sudden you're a slut and a whore and all this, all bitch, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're not nice. You're just weak. I'm not saying that, Rechtenwald. Want to be clear again. I can't knife people in the back while smiling in their faces. Well, then how are you going to be president?
It's difficult.
Of that, I am guilty. So persecute me forever. Let me break this down. I want to hear what is he referring to about the one who deep stated the Libertarian Party in DC. What does that mean?
I assume he's talking about illegally seating delegates and stalling out votes.
Oh, okay. I
And
see.
I don't know that Chase or Termott were involved in that. I know that Chase's campaign was, but I wouldn't accuse Chase or even Termott of doing that.
Okay. Um, are you? Do you have any reactions to this as a whole?
I mean, that's par for the course. It's completely understandable to feel that way. The thing with politics and the Libertarian Party is because we have this party built around the philosophy of libertarianism, opposing fraud, opposing aggression. People naively assume, I guess rightfully, but also naively, that people aren't going to lie, cheat, and steal. But that is
Right.
not the case. It is politics, and there are people who take an oath of non aggression and they lie, cheat, and steal and defraud. I see it every single day. They do it against me. We have to file lawsuits over it. It gets a big, ugly mess. And the party, I think, is also full of operatives. And like he said, triopoly people, we have an infestation of centrists and people who want to be like the third reasonable choice, which means, just a little less war, a little less inflationary spending, don't just trans the kids a little less. And I'm sure that that would make a lot of people angry for me to say that. How dare you say something like that about centrists in the party? Well, we're not the centrist party. We're not the fraud party. People who engage in that kind of behavior, in my opinion, don't belong here.
Hey, folks, Michael Malice here, tolerated author, Twitter asshole, and sheath underwear model. I love wearing sheath. I wear it every single day. They're the most comfortable briefs you'll ever wear. And I'm currently designing a new pair of sheath based on a certain type of fish, which you'll see in the coming months. Every time you hear my voice, you should know I'm wearing sheath. And what makes sheath different is that they have dual pouch technology. They have one pouch for one part of your male anatomy, another pouch for another part of your male anatomy. Sounds weird, but when you put them on, they're going to be super comfortable. They keep you cool in the hot weather, keep you nice and snug in an interview, on a date, doing a podcast, so on and so forth. After you tried Sheath, you're never going back to the other brands. Support the underwear that supports you. Go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice. You get 20% off. That's sheathunderwear.com, promo code MALICE, 20% off. They've got shirts, they've got hoodies, they've got mesh ones. They have something for you. They also have a girls line, but since women aren't allowed to listen to the show, I can't help you. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice. Folks, homes.com knows that when it comes to home shopping, it's never just about the house or condo. It's about the home. And what makes a home is more than just the house or property. It's the location and the neighborhood. If you have kids, it's also schools, nearby parks, transportation options. That's why homes.com goes above and beyond to bring home shoppers the in-depth information they need to find the right home. And when I say in-depth, I'm talking deep. Each listing features comprehensive information about the neighborhood, complete with a video guide. They also have details about local schools with test scores, state rankings, and student to teacher ratio. They even have an agent directory with the sales history of each agent. So when it comes to finding a home, not just a house, this is everything you need to know all in one place. Homes.com. We've done your homework. Let's get back to the show. So here's I was very concerned that I was going to kind of have to bite my tongue a little bit and pull my punches for the next few months because I have so many friends in the Libertarian Party and Dave obviously very strongly
Yeah.
among them. I've got another friend named Tom who's just a complete disaster who also joined the party, but no one knows who he is, so that's not really relevant. But I'm really glad that now I don't have to bite my tongue. And I got to tell you, I just did like an hour of just looking around these guys' socials, which if you're running against him for a nomination, you don't have an hour to do that. Well, get off Twitter and do it, or get one of your people to do it. It's completely inexcusable. Here, if you're running for president, they're going to do it to you.
Yeah.
This is 101 shit. I didn't have to go hire PI. I just looked at their Facebook and their Instagram and came up with gold, including Chase Oliver looking like he's wearing blackface. It's actually an acne mask. Yeah, no shit. But it's the picture's there, and
Yeah.
you know how politics works. The other thing I was shocked at is Mike Termott, the cop. He had a video where he's saying, mask up and social distance, like it's the right thing to do. And here's the thing. Again, we're talking about like if you and I have this, let's suppose you and I buy a house together, Angela, and we decorate in exactly the same way, and to the T, but you want to sell it, I want to live in there. Do we have the same goal or do we not? Right. So even though our visions are aligned, so if you are a libertarian and you're interested in fighting the state and you don't realize how the state gets over, it's not always going to be beating you to death. It's going to be co-opting corporate media. It's going to be co-opting social media, pressuring. And this social distancing is a perfect example of this. First of all, the masking is I think, well understood. But the point I always made is even people who bought into it hook, line, sinker, if social distancing was a good idea, why didn't they bring it back when the next wave hit? And if they didn't bring it back, that meant it didn't make sense to begin with, or they should have brought it back. You can't have it both ways. So to have someone who bought into that, I think, is telling, because this is not someone who's going to fight the state. And also, if
Yes.
you're a cop, you're an agent of the state. You are, maybe you're doing good things at the same time. You're certainly arresting people for what libertarians would regard as not crimes at all. You're handcuffing them, imprisoning them. You are. One of my tweets this week, I said, "Congratulations to Dave Smith. The Libertarian Party is officially part of the problem." But you are. You're violating the
It's
NAP
a
and you're taking
problem.
money from the government to do so.
And I mean, if you have such a time, if it's a struggle to just not feed into the mask narrative and all of that stuff, how do you expect to deal with the pressures that a president would deal with?
Right.
This is something that I've shared with the Kennedy campaign too. Like, if you have trouble dealing with just regular narratives, your campaign team, just the regular stresses of life, you are not cut out, for the big time. Um, there's so much to unpack here, and like the Dave Smith campaign, and everybody's really mad at him. Maybe
I
they're
don't
over it
blame him
by
one bit.
now. Well, this is the thing, right? We have a history of not treating our leaders very well, and it goes back decades. Gene Burns ran for the party's nomination I think in the early 90s. He was a talk radio host, and he backed out, basically citing that it was not going to improve his life, that it was more trouble than it was worth. And you wonder, how do we get, these like party activist types who don't reflect the values of the leadership and the broader liberty movement? And it's because we don't do a good job of like taking care of these people and showing appreciation. And I get frustration with Dave. I get frustration with other people that we'd asked and hadn't stepped up. But you got to consider what you're asking them. Like, what you're
So,
asking them is a really tall order.
So there was a lot of backlash when 4 years ago, the candidate Joe Jorgensen, who by all accounts is a very amiable, nice person, friendly,
Yes.
was tweeting out, "It's not enough to be uh, passively anti-racist. We have to be actively anti-racist." Apparently, those people running her social media, but she certainly, kind of fell into that kind of mindset. And now 4 years later, you have someone who is from easily the culturally far left of
Yes.
he's wearing a Juneteenth shirt, he's Black Lives Matter shirts. Would you say that Dave Smith has subverted the Libertarian Party in those words?
I mean, what do you mean by subverted? I want to be really precise.
You know what I mean?
Did you just do the?
Yes, yeah, I did the hands. I
That's
could
gonna
do it.
be
I
yeah.
went to yeshiva.
You're a meme now. You're a
Yeah,
meme.
I've
You're
done
the
that
meme
before.
that we removed from Twitter.
I've done that on Fox.
Oh man, that's hilarious. I would say that the party culture is still too toxic.
Okay.
I think that's true, and that is something that the MC has fought over, but it is exhausting. And this is like a really difficult situation in politics. The people who are gross, and I don't mean Chase Oliver, but I do mean some of his supporters. The people who are the grossest and willing to do the most unsavory actions are usually the ones that are going to outlast everyone else. And that's why, like corporate media narratives are so prevalent and persistent. That's why awful things happen. This is something I heard you talk about, like a critique of good ideas win in the free marketplace of ideas. but the marketplace is corrupt and full of bad actors. And the same thing happens in politics, including the Libertarian Party. We have to fight asymmetrical warfare, and really good people, really good libertarians. I'd say the same thing for a lot of conservatives. Like, they're not willing, I don't even think they're able to adopt Saul Alinsky's rules for radical style behavior. It's just literally not possible for them. And so then you end up with this situation.
What do you foresee happening with this campaign? Are you excited? Do you think it's going to be a train wreck? Do you think it's a distraction from your role in like building the party? Is it make you look bad in front of the Trump campaign? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this ticket.
Oh man, I'm excited to share it with you. I just want to say, like, I endorse Chase Oliver as being a far better alternative to Joe Biden. I want all of the progressive anti-war protest votes to go to Chase Oliver. He's a better candidate than Joe Biden. He's a better candidate for anti-war than Jill Stein or Cornel West, because he understands, at least to a certain extent, the role that government spending plays in enabling war overseas. And so I think that Chase is a much better candidate than Joe Biden. Now, when it comes to the membership work, if you want to see me and the Libertarian Party do additional things to move the Trump campaign in the correct direction, if you like that we got Donald Trump to free Ross Ulbricht on day one, if you like that we have him seriously considering freeing Julian Assange, that he said that he won't support any vaccine mandates for school, if you like that sort of stuff, you should join the LP, because we're going to continue to push that Overton window, and we're going to continue to influence that campaign positively.
Folks, head on over to malice.locals.com, where Angela took questions from supporters. You know, I was on the fence about going to speak at the Libertarian Convention, and I got to tell you, if I was there, I would absolutely do what I could to put Chase Oliver over, because the funniest solution is always the best. Here's a question from me before we wrap up. Do you think this was the Libertarian Party doing 4D chess to endorse Donald Trump?
I don't think I'm going to use the word endorse.
Okay, Angela, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
This was like therapy for me. Just being able to get the whole thing out. I just got elected, so I'm just completely out of fucks.
You are welcome.
It's summertime, and with Pluto TV's Summer of Cinema, the streaming is easy. Stream hundreds of free movies on all your favorite devices all summer long. Chill out poolside with Mission Impossible and Transformers. Or stay cool inside watching Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Titanic, or The Wolf of Wall Street. No matter your vibe, download the Pluto TV app to spend summer doing what you love. Watching endless movies. Tell me that's not the deal of the summer. Summer of Cinema on Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.